Hey everybody, Dom here from Lensprotogo and Lens Rentals, and welcome back to the channel. In this week's video, I'm going to show you how I used a projector to add a unique moving element to a couple shoots I did right here in the office. So to do this, I set up 3 mini shoots with the goal of using this projector to spice them up a little bit. So as I show you some of these clips, I'm going to point out how I use the projector in the shot, including where I put the projector in relation to the subject, what I chose to project, and also any little tricks that I had to do in order to get this to work the way I wanted it to. Also, side note, I wasn't always able to get a real human subject to shoot with, so you're going to see a couple of appearances by my friend Scarlett once or twice in this video. Also, side note, I found a treasure trove of projector B-roll from the shoot I did at Windy Films last month, where they were literally using a projector for an awesome cinematic commercial shoot. So I'm totally going to steal a lot of that behind the scenes, and you're going to see a lot of that in this video. And that is not to be confused with the humdrum shoots that I set up today. Okay, so getting started. You're going to need to figure out what kind of projector you're working with, because your lumen output and projection size are going to be big factors in how you're going to be able to use this projector to shoot with. Today I used an Epson WUXGA or a WUXGA. Not really sure what the pronunciation is there. This is a really nice projector. It's about $3,500 and outputs up to 6,000 lumens, and also has a projection area of 80 inches. This is a rather bright projector, and in some cases it was actually too bright on camera, which was okay because then I could just stop down, add some additional lights without having them spill onto the projected image as much, which otherwise might be an issue on a projector with less lumen output, because in that case that will require a dark room to expose for it correctly, and then adding additional lights could get a little bit tricky unless you had a lot of space to separate everything. However, the downside to projectors this powerful is that they're often pretty large and heavy. And if I had a smaller one, like a cheap one that you can get on Amazon, I would have definitely tried experimenting with hooking it up from the ceiling and getting a top-down projection, sort of like a moving spotlight. But maybe next time. Now that we've got all that covered, let's check out these shots. So starting with the most obvious way to use a projector on your shoot is projecting directly onto your subject. If done right, this can be a really cool way to add an image, either still or moving, overlaid onto your subject. Now there are a few things to know if you're going with this approach. The lighting is going to end up pretty flat, which can be a cool look, but sometimes can end up a little unflattering. Also, if you're doing this, since you have a hard light source shining directly on your subject, there's going to be a pretty harsh shadow behind them. So if you want the projected image on both your subject and your background, and you don't want any of those shadows in the shot, there are 2 things you can do to avoid this. You can shoot totally aligned with the projector so the shadow isn't visible, or you can try to skew the projector so it hits the subject in the background from an angle. But this is where having a nice projector comes into play, because this is going to be difficult to pull off without a large projection size. Also, if you're placing a subject in front of a projected image, just keep in mind that projectors are extremely bright and they are very uncomfortable and possibly damaging to your eyes to look into, so keep that in mind if you're placing someone in front of a projector. Another way I used a projector is for backlighting. This can add a really cool moving, shifting rim light to your subject, but one thing to keep in mind here is if your camera is in the projection area, you're probably going to get some significant lens flaring. In these shots, I used a vintage Helios lens to get some ridiculous flaring. This is one reason I really love shooting with projectors, because they can be really cool for shooting right into and getting some awesome, colorful, moving lens flares, making them totally work as a practical light to have in the shot. One super cool way to implement a projector on your shoot is by using a technique called rear projection. For this shot, we placed a sheet of diffusion right next to us and projected a few shots from moving subway trains to emulate that type of lighting. Now this is really neat because you get the ambient lighting from the projected image, and it's still pretty subtle. Honestly, for a rudimentary setup, I think we got pretty close to an authentic looking shot. And if we spent a bit longer on this, we probably could have pulled off a seamless poor man's subway shot. Okay, the last technique for using a projector on your shoot that I'm gonna talk about is one that I didn't expect to look so cool, but it did. And that is taking the projected image off your subject completely and just using it as a background and lighting your subject independently from that. So one neat trick I did during this setup is I actually laid down a mirror on the ground so it caught the very bottom of the projection area and then reflected it back into the lens, so you can still get the lens flare from the projector while being right next to it. Okay, before we wrap up this video, I just wanted to share with you a couple of notes that I learned about shooting on a projector from today. So on this projector, and I'm sure this is true for many projectors, when projecting an image, even black and white ones, I got this significant magenta cast. You can think of this as like chromatic aberration in a camera lens, but for some reason, this magenta color aberrates so much quickly and so much more drastically than any other color on the spectrum coming from this projector. Also, going into the shoot, really ask yourself what you want to be projecting and try to get that figured out going into the shoot. If you're just experimenting with this for now, I noticed that it's much easier to start with a simple, predictable video source, maybe like an old black and white movie, and then work your way up to a faster paced, more colorful video source, like maybe an animated film. I say this because it can be difficult to gauge what the projector is doing when the video source is moving around so rapidly. Honestly, if you're just starting out, I would work with actually a still image, maybe just pause the video that you were thinking about doing, and then you can move on to moving images and things with color and stuff like that. But make it easy for yourself at first. Okay, so that wraps up this video on how I used a projector to add a unique moving element to a few of my shots. I know so many people have used projectors in their creative work and are doing really cool stuff with them. So if you have any ideas for one that I didn't cover in this video, drop a comment in the comments section and we'll start a discussion about what you guys think would be an awesome way to use a projector on a photo or video shoot. Also, if you liked this video, make sure to hit that like button, and if you're not already, subscribe to the channel to stay tuned in for more weekly content, and we'll see you in the next one.